Hi everyone, my name's Christina. I'm one of the rehoming team leads for Greyhounds as Pets. We're New Zealand's biggest greyhound adoption agency, so we help find racing greyhounds that have retired their wonderful forever homes. A big part of my job is helping those hounds transition into their new home. So we've done this little video series to kind of help adopters on that process and make everything a little bit easier and a little bit straightforward for them to understand. So this is especially with COVID being a little bit of a challenge and us not being able to do so much in person. So hopefully this video series will help fill in the gaps there. If you do have any questions, please feel free to contact your rehoming team through your adoption agency. But yeah, hopefully this will answer a few of your questions. So I'm going to start by going through the dog summary, which is your main paperwork that you'll get during your adoption. We'll also go through your dog's vet book and what you need to understand there, and then go through the kind of the settling in process, dealing with things like looking at feeding and nutrition. We want to look at how your greyhound's settling in around your children, socializing with other dogs, common behavioral issues and things like that. So there's a lot to take in. You might want to grab a cup of tea. I've done this into hopefully bite-sized pieces, and again, if you've got any questions, please do get in touch. It's just worth noting this is kind of our generic information that we pass on to most adopters, and there's always going to be stuff that's individual to you and your hound, so that's all part of the process and something we'll definitely chat about and navigate with you. So strap on in and let's get started. I'm just going to use my technical skills here, which are severely lacking, and try and do a screen share. One moment. Righto. So hopefully on your screen here, we've got a dog summary. So I've just used my dog Billy as the example today. So it can help you understand the information that we're giving and what you need to do with it. So the first thing is his kennel name. So Billy came with his kennel name. We've kept his kennel name. He's down there on the floor and knows his name. If you do want to change your greyhound's name, you're most welcome to. Most greyhounds do respond to their name. We get some that don't. If you just think in a racing environment, it's possibly not the best racing tactic if your dog can be called in the middle of a race by a punter or a bystander. So a lot of greyhounds, recall's not high on their priority list. We'll go through teaching your greyhound to respond to your name later on in the series. But yeah, if the kennel name is not something you love, feel free to change it to make it, make your hound feel a bit more at home. That's not a problem. Your racing name is the name that your hound has been registered with, in this case with Greyhound Racing New Zealand. So if I'm clever, which I'm possibly not, no, I am. We've got, hopefully you can see Greyhound Racing's website here, and I've just searched Billy's name. So you go to Greyhound Profiles, search your dog's name, and you can have a really cool look through their racing history as well. So you'll be able to see where they've trained, who your dog's parents are, and you can go down and see how much money they've won. In Billy's case, not very much at all, and their last race records and things. So it's quite cool. And if you've got two hounds, you might even find they've raced against each other at some point. If your friends have got greyhounds, you'll be able to find them in the list as well. So it's actually quite fun and a really cool way of keeping track of their records. And if we go back to the dog summary here, to go along with your racing information, you've got your dog's whelping date here. So that's just another way of saying their birth date. Their ear brand. So your greyhound's going to have a tattoo inside its ear. And the Z for that means it's born and bred in New Zealand. You may have hounds that have an N for New South Wales, or occasionally get a V for Victoria as well, for the dogs that have come over from Australia. Your dog's microchip numbers here, and their council registration numbers there as well. Now, in your adoption folder, you'll have a handout which explains how to transfer your dog's registration into your name, and explains how to transfer their microchip into your name as well. Those processes are done separately. Your council registration is through, obviously, your council. It's really, really important that you get onto that and do that quite quickly. Your registration tag will look something like this, that red tag there. And they expire in the end of June for each calendar year. So if you're adopting your dog in May, you'll need to get its new registration sorted in June, so that it has a new registration tag for July. If you're adopting in July, you're really lucky, you've got a dog with a new rego. We do have a few holdups given the COVID situation with the registration. So if your dog hasn't come with a tag, please be patient, or just check in with us and see how we're getting on with that. But yeah, as I was saying, it is really important that you transfer your dog into your name, both from a practical perspective, so if your dog does get lost, the council contacts you and not us, and from a legal perspective as well. So that's your legal ownership of your hound. You'll need to do that, and please do get onto that straight away. I think within two weeks is the window there. If you've got any problems with that, please don't hesitate to get in touch. We're here to help, and some councils do have a bit of a convoluted process and wanting us to deregister them at our end and things like that, and take them out of our name first. But yeah, if you do have any problems, please let us know. Lastly, your microchip number there. So that's done through the companion animal register. So you can do that either online, the details are in that handout, or you can do it through the vets as well. It's a really, really good idea to get that done as well. If your dog does go missing and it's picked up by the pound or the animal control, they will contact you by the council details. If it's picked up by someone and taken to the vets can then contact you via the companion animal register. So both really, really good ideas to get everything done there and keep everything safe. The last thing, we do get asked occasionally what the dog number is. That's just a gap number, so you don't need to worry about that too much. Your dog's colour, Billy, is white and blue. You'll get lots of different colours there. Sometimes it'll just have letters, so Billy's could be WB, I think, for white and blue, and that's just to do with the greyhound racing. It just depends how it's been logged in the system, but you can have a look at your dog's colour, by looking at your dog. Your description, so that comes through. That's written by the kennel staff here, and that's the description that will be shown on the website. So it's generally just an outline of your greyhound and what type of home we think they're suitable for. Your pre-gap experience, this is a really cool little section here. This is for your dog's trainers details. So most trainers will pass their details on to GAP, and we absolutely encourage adopters to get in touch with their dog's trainers. It's really, really important. A lot of the trainers absolutely adore their dogs and do an amazing job looking after them and caring for them, and really, really want to know how they're getting on in their new homes. So we get pestered by lots of trainers saying, so-and-so hasn't contacted me, I haven't heard from them yet. We can't pass your details on to the trainers without your permission, but you can get in touch with your dog's trainer if the details are there. And we really, really encourage you to do so. It's quite cool. They'll have photos of them racing possibly, and we've even had adopters that have got the dogs ribbons or done meet and greets. Billy has gone and met with his trainer since we've adopted them, which was pretty cool. And my other greyhound, Chad, we've got a meeting scheduled for later in this year with Callum and May, which will be really fun as well. Foster comments. If your greyhound's been in foster care, there may be a few comments here. There's probably going to be a lot more than just that. I fostered Billy, so the comments were a bit brief because I was the one adopting him. But yeah, the foster details were there. Now, not every greyhound is fostered. In fact, most go straight from a racing kennel to the rehoming kennels and then into a home. If your dog has been fostered, it may be because it had a behavioural issue or a medical issue that needed to be addressed, or it could just be that the kennels are really full, or we had a foster carer available. So don't read too much into that. If your dog has been fostered, it doesn't necessarily mean anything. And what's more important is the comments that are written there. So we often try and put the foster carer's details there as well, so you can get in touch with the foster carer directly if you'd like to. Next in the section here, we have your dog's health details. So all of our greyhounds are being fleed and wormed while they're at the kennels. We really strongly encourage you to worm your dog again when you get it home, and then if possible within a couple of weeks as well. That will mean that if it has picked up any parasites while in the kennels, which is likely just given the number of dogs that are there, and if any of those eggs have hatched, that you've got a really good chance of getting those and sorting that out quite quickly. Brontal or Enderguard tend to be the most commonly used wormers. We will have a video up there later on for dogs that do have worm issues. So if you are thinking that's likely to be you, maybe contact your rehoming team. So signs with that would be your dog's got a really upset tummy or a depressed appetite, or you may have even seen a worm being passed through. So do chat to us if you've got any questions for worms. Worms in greyhounds is something we're really aware of, just because of the fact that you've got a large volume of dogs living together. So you do have issues like parasites. Now, flea treatments, most greyhounds tend to have very little problem with fleas. Some owners do routinely treat the dogs for fleas as a preventative, others just choose to do it as a treatment. Your dog will have been flea treated while it was in the kennels, and it's completely up to you whether you continue on with that. We've also got your dog's vaccination details here as well. So you can see Billy's are all there. Now, that as well as reflecting on your dog summary there, it's in your vet book here as well. Now, this is not Billy's vet book, this is Cherie's vet book, but we've got her vaccine details in here. So what you'll find with those, we'll have it written when your vaccine's next due. The most important one is going to be called either Vanguard 5 Plus or DHPPI, and that's every 3 years. Your other two vaccines will be kennel cough, and that's due annually, or in some cases Leptogard for dogs in the North Island, and that's also due annually, and it needs a booster after the first vaccine. So you have your first vaccine, a booster 4 to 6 weeks later, and then it's annual. Now, not all vets do the booster, but it is highly recommended. And not all adopters do vaccinate for lepto and for kennel cough. It does depend on your preferences and where your dog is, but it's really, really strongly recommended. You'll also have a copy of your dog's desexing certificate. Now, in this case, we've got an actual desexing certificate. So this is proof that your dog is being spayed or neutered. In most cases, they don't come with that. It's paper. It is in the copy of your vet book, so we've got that here as well. So the first few copies of your vet book. If you're ever asked for evidence that your hound is desexed, which is highly likely, it may be by the council when you're doing your registration process, or it could be if your dog's going into a boarding kennel or something like that, that's where you'll find it. You'll also have your dog's microchip in their vet book as well if you do need a second copy of that. Other vet notes may be noted. So in Billy's case, he's had a routine desex, he's had a dental with 3 teeth removed, so 3 extractions, and there's a few other vet notes there. Now, all of the greyhounds that have come through the GAP program will have all had a dental scale and polish, and that's done under anaesthetic, and that means they're going up with nice clean teeth. They will have had extractions if they've needed it. They will be desexed and they will be fully vaccinated. If you have any questions about that, please do contact your rehoming team. We'll do a session later on the kind of common health issues. So for greyhounds, it tends to be teeth, tummy and toes. So we'll do that later in the series. So it's not too much information to all take in at once. But yeah, as a long story short, all that information that has been done, all your vet history can be found on your dog summary here. Now, I'm just going to make a little note here. We don't always have the dog's full vet history from birth to when it comes into us. We get given the information we get provided by the trainer. Some of the dogs have had multiple trainers, some may have been bred in Australia. So the information we've got here is a full vet check, the dental, desexing and vaccinations. We do also have, if your dog's had any injuries, they will be cleared by the vet before rehoming, and you're most welcome to discuss that with us if you've got any queries or questions on that as well. We've also, Billy's got noted here, he's got a partial tail amputation prior to entering GAP, and that is really common with greyhounds. It's lovely known as happy tail, and it's from whacking the tail on the side of the kennels when they're really excited. It can damage the tail there, and amputation's obviously one of the ways that can be treated. So if your dog does have a shorter tail, that is highly likely the reason. Now, the next section here, you've got your dietary information. So Billy's race weight is not recorded there. He was big. Your GAP weight and your ideal pet weight. Now, your race weight and your ideal pet weight are possibly what's most important. I'm just going to go back for a second. Some of our hounds won't have a kennel racing name, so they'll just say unraced in that section there, and that just means they haven't been registered for racing. It could be that they didn't chase, they were too slow, the trainer just had other things on and decided to rehome them rather than race them. So yeah, there are some of the dogs that come in as unraced as well. Those dogs will generally be quite young, either a year or two. Too old, and we will have later on in the series when we start talking about assessments and things, we'll talk about the difference between the ones that haven't been raced and the ones that have been raced, so you'll learn a bit more about that then. Anyway, we'll go back down to your information. So your racing weight and your ideal pet weight, as a rule, your ideal pet weight, they say is about 2 to 3 kilos heavier than your race weight, but that does depend hugely on the dog and how they raced and their kind of, physique. So in Billy's case, he's actually 6 kilos heavier now than he was when he was racing, which we're quite happy about because he's a senior dog and we've really struggled to get the weight on him. Our other dog, Chad, is a kilo lighter than when he didn't actually race, but when he came to us. He's very lean and mean and athletic and very, very fit because he does a lot of exercise with us. So using their race weight can be a bit of a gamble when you're looking at their ideal pet weight. It is a good indication in lots of cases, but we don't tend to take it too seriously. What we do want to do is look at their body condition, and we'll go through that later on in the series as well to try and look at when your greyhound's looking a little bit thin or a little bit fat, and what you can do about that. Now, feeding comments. So your greyhound will have been fed, if it's been through the rehoming program, a nutrients product, highly likely nutrients original. Some of our greyhounds are fed nutrients grain-free and or even sub-zero in some cases. We highly recommend sticking with nutrients, at least to start with, and helping transition your hound into a pet life without having to worry about an upset tummy is a really big important factor. So feeding your greyhound, you'll have a handout in your adoption pack there, and that will explain what your greyhound's been eating and have some kind of ideas and things on what you should and shouldn't be feeding them. A few comments just to note here. Generally the boys are fed a bit more than the girls just because the boys are a bit heavier than the girls, and feeding nutrients dry, some of the dogs will turn their nose up at it. So mixing in something like a couple of spoons of Primal, which is a tin product, you can mix through to make the biscuits a bit more appetizing, can be really helpful, especially in the first few days when your greyhound may or may not be as interested in food, just with all the changes that are going on. Now your part of your adoption with GAP is you'll be offered a welcome pack, or a starter pack they're also called. This is a 11.5 kilo bag of nutrients original, a tin of Primal, a little bag of treats, and a new food bowl, and the cost of that is $70 with all of that donated back to GAP. So we really do encourage our adopters to purchase the welcome and starter packs, purely because it does help us home more hounds. It helps put more money in the account, which is always helpful, and it's a really good way of keeping your dog's diet the same while they've got so many other changes going on. It is really common for your greyhound to have a bit of an upset tummy, not be interested in food, be more interested in food for the first few days. If you've got any questions, please do contact us at the rehoming team, and we can help if you are concerned because your dog's not eating as well as it should be. We've got lots of ideas and lots we can do to help you out there. Lastly is your assessment and training notes. Now these will be related to your greyhound. So Billy's I've kept very brief there. But we generally will have a comment or two on what the dog was like in the kennels, what they've been like socializing with other dogs, particularly small dogs, and it may be any details that we've got regarding possible things they may need to work on, such as separation anxiety or learning some basic home manners. Now, one thing to note is it's really difficult to assess a greyhound in a kennel environment and then have those same results when they go into a home environment. So as much as your assessment's a really good indication of where they're at in the kennels, it doesn't necessarily reflect how you're then going to navigate that when you get your dog into a pet home. So for example, you may have a greyhound that's assessed as really social around small dogs. We may have written some notes like soft body language, your posturing, wanting to play, soft wiggly body, soft eyes, waggy tail, all of those things kind of indicating that there was no real predatory or prey drive. We'll discuss those terms later on in a bit more detail. Around the small dog, it doesn't mean to say that you can then go and let your greyhound off in a dog park with loads of small dogs running around and expect it to all go well. It's a completely different environment. Your greyhound's been assessed in very controlled conditions, and it's really important that we are careful and gradual about how we introduce them to other breeds of dogs once they're in a home environment. We will do a lot of that and cover a lot of that in the later sections of this, so please do stick around and make sure you check in with those. Lastly, and it follows on quite nicely, if you do have any questions or things aren't quite going to plan, we've got our wonderful Rebecca Beck, who does our aftercare. Her details in here as well. Now, there'll be a letter from her in your adoption pack that has some basic handy hints and tips for how to settle your dog into your new home. And we really, really strongly recommend that you read that and have a good thought about that, good think about it. Either Rebecca will be in touch with an email or phone call. If you've got any questions in the meantime, please do contact her. Her details are there as well as on the letter, and she's more than happy to help out as the rehoming team. So that covers the information in your dog summary. We've kind of rushed through that and done a very generic one, but there will be much more detail on your personal dogs one. And if you've got any questions about anything on there, please do get in touch with the rehoming team.